Hey guys, what's going on? MJ Madness here, and today I'm going to be giving you my 2016-17 NFL predictions. Now, at the time of the recording this video, the first game of the NFL season begins later tonight, so I thought, why not do a prediction video? So I'm going to be running through all of the divisions and the order in which I think the teams will finish, and then I'll say which teams will make the playoffs, and at the end of the video, I will give you my Super Bowl prediction. So without further ado, let's get into the predictions. Okay, so I'm going to be starting in the AFC, and first off, we're going to be looking at one of the toughest divisions in football, the AFC North. So in this division, you have the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Starting at the bottom, I'm going with the Cleveland Browns. Now, I think they won't be as bad as everybody thinks. I think Robert Griffin III still has some talent left in him, but they're definitely not going to be any good. So they're going to be fourth place in this division. Coming in at number 3, I'm going with the Baltimore Ravens. I think this is a mediocre team. They've really fallen off. A lot of their players are getting older, so they're definitely not what they used to be. They're still going to be decent. I'd put them at like 7-9 maybe, but not good enough to compete with the top 2 teams in this division. At number 2, I'm saying the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this is definitely a very solid team. You know, they lost their top wide receiver, Eifert, this season, but they still have Andy Dalton at quarterback, who's always consistent, A.J. Green, Jeremy Hill. Again, a very well-rounded team, and I see this team coming in second, but being able to snag that wild card spot in the AFC, so I think they make the playoffs. And then at the top of the list, one of the best teams in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm putting them in first place. I think Ben Roethlisberger plays amazing as always. Antonio Brown will be great. Really just an overall very good team that I definitely think will be contending for the Super Bowl, so I put them at the top of this division. And now we're going to move on to the AFC East. Now, this is another pretty solid division, a couple pretty good teams. In this division, we have the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, and the New England Patriots. So starting at the bottom at number 4, I'm putting the Buffalo Bills. I think this is going to be an improved team, and I think they'll do better than last season, but I still don't see them really making any noise. I don't think this is their year quite yet, so I'm still putting them at the bottom of their division. At number 3, I'm going with the Miami Dolphins. I really like this team. I like what they're building in Miami, and I think they're definitely getting towards becoming a contender, but they're not quite ready for that yet, so I'm putting them at 3rd in this division. At number 2, I'm going with the New York Jets. This is like an upper middle of the pack NFL team. They're always kind of on the cusp of the playoffs. I don't think they'll get there this season, but they'll still have a respectable season, maybe 9-7, and they'll be pretty close, so I put them 2nd in this division. And then at number 1, pretty much obviously, the New England Patriots. This is a very good team, and even though we may hate them, they're always going to be contending for a Super Bowl. Now, things are a little different in that Tom Brady's suspended for the first 4 games, so I don't think they'll do as well and be as dominant, but they still should win the division pretty easily, and I think they're basically locked in for the playoffs. Now let's move on to the AFC South. Now, this is one of the weaker divisions in football. None of these teams are really going to be contending for a Super Bowl anytime soon, but nevertheless, they're all in the same division, and one of them's going to make the playoffs. So, in 4th place, I'm going with the Tennessee Titans. I don't really know what to say about the Titans. Like, I don't know. Marcus Mariota, he's a one bright spot on that roster, and they definitely have some potential, but I think they'll be just as bad this year. At number 3, I'm going with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I know a lot of people are really aboard the bandwagon with Jacksonville, and I'd say myself included. I definitely think with Blake Bortles, they're going to be a very solid middle-of-the-pack team, maybe 8-8, and I think they'll be very good, but not playoff level good, which is why I have them at 3rd in this division. Number 2, I'm going with the Houston Texans, because although this roster may not be the most complete, J.J. Watt leads this team, and he's almost going to guarantee them, if he stays healthy, that they're going to do always pretty well. So I'm putting them at 2nd, and at number 1, I am expecting a bounce-back season from the Indianapolis Colts. I really think Andrew Luck still is one of the best quarterbacks in the game, and I think he can find his old former self and become a great player once again and kind of lead the Colts to some success this year and to 1st in the division. And finally, rounding out the AFC, we have the AFC West. Now, this is probably the division that I would say is the toughest in football because you have three really solid teams and then the San Diego Chargers. But all of the Oakland Raiders, Kansas City Chiefs, and Denver Broncos are going to be very good this year. So, starting in at number 4, the worst team in this division is going to be, most likely, the San Diego Chargers. I don't really know what's happening in San Diego, and I don't think this team's really going to get anywhere this year, which is why I'm penciling them in at 4th in the division. And now I had a really tough choice kind of determining the order for the top 3, but at number 3, I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I know they had a very good season last year. If you recall, they started the season 1-5 and then finished 10-0. So, I mean, they could be good, and I think they will be, but I'm not sure if Andy Reid can lead them to that level again, and so I'm not really sure if they're going to make the playoffs this year. Now, they'll still be good, and they got a pretty solid roster, but I'm putting them in at 3rd in this very strong division. At number 2, a team that I really think is going to take a big step forward this year, the Oakland Raiders. Now, they made some really big acquisitions in the free agent market. They made some trades, and they're really looking like a solid team. They have Khalil Mack, who's one of the best in the game, and then Derek Carr is one of the best up-and-coming quarterbacks as well. I think this is going to be a surprise team to watch, and surprising even myself, I am penciling them in for the wild card playoff spot in the AFC and putting them at 2nd place. And then at number 1, the reigning Super Bowl champions, the Denver Broncos. Now, they are without Peyton Manning, which is why I don't think they're going to be contending for a Super Bowl this year, but they still have one of the best defenses in the league. They still have Von Miller, and they're still going to be very, very good. I think they should win this division, but it will definitely be close between the Raiders, the Chiefs, and the Broncos, and this should be one of the most exciting divisions to watch in the NFL in 2016-17. Okay, so for the 6 teams that will make the playoffs out of the AFC, if you weren't keeping track, as the second wild card at number 6, I'm going with the Oakland Raiders. As the first wild card at number 5, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals. At number 4, I'm putting in the Indianapolis Colts. At number 3, the Denver Broncos. At number 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers. And at number 1, the New England Patriots. And those are who I predict will be the playoff teams in the AFC in the 2016-17 season. Now let's move over to the NFC. Okay, so starting off the NFC, we are going to go with the NFC North. Now, this is another really solid division. You got 2 very good teams in the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, and then 2 not-so-great teams in the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. So, at number 4 in this division, I'm going with the Detroit Lions. Now, this is an okay team, but I don't think they're going to be that good this year. They don't really have anyone special, so I'm putting them in at number 4. At number 3, I'm going with the Bears. I know they have a lot of fans and they've done some good stuff in the past, but they're not really any team to get excited about, and I don't think they're going to make much noise this year. At number 2, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, this is a really interesting team. I think Teddy Bridgewater is one of the best quarterbacks that's up and coming in the NFL, and with him, I had them as one of the dark horse teams to be contending for the Super Bowl. But now news came out that he's injured for the entire season, and I think that really hurts their chances quite a lot. Now, you'll recall last year with him, they won the division and did pretty well, and if not for that missed field goal in the playoffs, they would have made it past the round. So they're definitely a good team, but I'm kind of worried that without Teddy Bridgewater, they're not going to do nearly as well. Now, they brought in Sam Bradford from the Philadelphia Eagles, but they gave up a first-round pick. I'm not really sure if that was the smartest thing to do, but he definitely will help them out a bit to hold up that gap at quarterback until Teddy Bridgewater comes back. So despite him being missing and injured for the year, I still think the Vikings make the wild card spot in the NFC, so I'm putting them in at 2nd in the division and a wild card team for the playoffs. And then, coming in at number 1, we have the Green Bay Packers. What can I say about Green Bay? This is a very good team. Aaron Rodgers is probably one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. They have a very stacked, solid team, and I think they're going to do really well this season. And they should almost run away with this division. I think they'll be really good. Now we got the NFC East, and this is a pretty mediocre division. with the New York Giants, the Dallas Cowboys, the Philadelphia Eagles, and the Washington Redskins. Coming in at number 4, I'm putting the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a bad team, and I think they're not really going to do much this year. Of course, they do have Carson Wentz, and I definitely think he will turn into someone good, but he's too young to become that player just yet. So I think they're not going to be great this year, and they'll be last in the division. At number 3, I'm putting the New York Giants. I know Odell Beckham Jr. is amazing, and Eli Manning's pretty good as well, but I don't really think the rest of the team is up to par, and I think that's going to kind of hold them back from doing any better, so I'm putting them at 3rd. At number 2, I'm going with the Washington Redskins. I think this is a decent team. Kirk Cousins is pretty solid. Overall, they could be pushing for the playoffs on the bubble. I don't really think they're going to get there this year. I'm putting them at 2nd. And at number 1, I'm predicting the rise of the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Tony Romo is great when he's playing, but now they have Dak Prescott at quarterback, and I'm not going to lie, I'm ready for some Daction. I think he's going to be solid. Ezekiel Elliott, he's also really good, and I think either this team could play amazingly, or everything could backfire and they could end up playing terribly. I'm betting on the former, and I think they're going to be able to win the division this year and do pretty well. Now we're moving on to the NFC South, and this division is pretty much the Carolina Panthers and everybody else. The everybody else being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the New Orleans Saints. But the worst team in this division, at number 4, maybe a surprise pick, the New Orleans Saints. Now I know Drew Brees is great, but there's nothing else on this team, and he's getting older. I'm not really sure the direction this team is headed, and I think they're going to be in for some years of hurt. And I think it really starts this season, and I'm putting them at 4th. At number 3, I'm going with the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan's always solid. Julio Jones is one of the best players in the NFL. And I think they're going to be decent. Not great, but decent. And so I'm putting them in at number 3. Maybe a surprise pick. At number 2, I'm going with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm really liking what Tampa Bay has got going. They're one of the youngest teams. They're kind of rebuilding, but I really think if they keep this up, they could become something good in the future. I really think Jameis Winston has got what it takes at quarterback, and I think they take a big step forward this year and end up 2nd in the division. And number 1, probably almost guaranteed to happen, the Carolina Panthers. This team is very solid. Cam Newton is one of the best quarterbacks around. Luke Kuechly's amazing. They got Kelvin Benjamin coming back from injury. And even though they've lost Josh Norman, I think they still should be dominant. Now, they may not go 15-1, but I still think they should win the division pretty easily and be a threat to go far in the playoffs. And our last division to preview, we have finally the NFC West. This is another really solid division and some very big powerhouses coming in at the top of this division. And in this division, we have the San Francisco 49ers, the brand new Los Angeles Rams, the Arizona Cardinals, and the Seattle Seahawks. Coming in at number 4, I'm putting the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this team just moved from St. Louis to Los Angeles in the offseason, and I think this may provide some distractions. And the team is definitely pretty good. They just got Jared Goff with the number 1 overall pick. They gave up too much to trade for it, but I still think he's going to be pretty solid. But I don't think he's ready yet, and the team isn't ready to do much more than become 4th in this division. At number 3, I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers. And I'm sure a lot of you think they should be worse, but I'm really kind of on this hype train that is the San Francisco 49ers. I think regardless of what's happening off the field, I think Colin Kaepernick brings back and resurrects his career, and I think the 49ers are going to be solid this year. Maybe 7-9, 8-8, and if not for the other 2 teams in this division, they would be doing much better. And now, coming in at number 2, this might be a little controversial, but I'm putting the Seattle Seahawks here. Now, it was a really close toss-up between these 2 teams, but in the end, I just trust Arizona more. I think they have a more well-rounded team, but I still think Seattle should easily take up that first wild card. Russell Wilson's going to be great. They have an overall very solid, well-rounded team, and I think this team is going to make some noise in the playoffs. And then, at number 1 in the division, I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals. I really like this Cardinals team. I think Carson Palmer, even though he's getting old, still has what it takes. They have Larry Fitzgerald, Peterson, a very solid team, and I think they should win the division this year. And now let's look at the playoffs and which teams I think will be able to make the playoffs coming out of the NFC. So, out of the wild cards, at number 6, I'm going with the Minnesota Vikings. The next wild card at number 5, I am going with the Seattle Seahawks. And then at number 4 in the division, I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys. At number 3, I'm putting the Carolina Panthers. At number 2, the Arizona Cardinals. And winning the NFC, I am going with the Green Bay Packers. And now let's get into the funnest part of the video, my playoff picks. Now, I'm not going to really go through what happens in the earlier rounds, but basically I'm going to be giving you my championship game predictions of both NFC and AFC, and then my Super Bowl picks. So out of the AFC, my prediction for the championship game is it's going to be between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots, and I think that the Steelers come out on top and go to the Super Bowl. Now, these are both two really good teams, the Patriots and the Steelers, but I think the Steelers just have a little bit more skill, and I think they'll make the playoffs. In the NFC, I'm predicting that the game of the NFC Championship will be between the Arizona Cardinals and the Carolina Panthers. And I think Carolina just slightly wins this battle and returns to their second consecutive Super Bowl. And then in the Super Bowl, I'm predicting we have the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Carolina Panthers, and I think your Super Bowl championships of 2016-17 will be the Carolina Panthers. I think this team has what it takes, and I think they're going to come out on top and surprise a lot of people and win the Super Bowl in 2016-17. But again, this is just my opinion. Let me know what you think is going to be the Super Bowl in the 2016-17 season and who you think is going to win. As well, I'd love to hear some of your playoff picks. Do you agree with who I put in there? Think maybe I forgot some teams? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you guys enjoyed this video and want to see more NFL-themed videos, be sure to leave a like. Thank you guys all for watching, and take care.